who's got a tough act to follow as far as trying to be the coolest guest of the day. Our guy. What up, Coach?
That's true.
How are you doing?
I think he's up to it.
Welcome back, Coach.
I don't know. Get a sharp one here.
It's challenging.
Coach, have you noticed anything different about the show?
I have.
You have?
Yeah, there's something suspiciously different.
Okay.
What?
Nothing. Let's talk about one of your favorite players, Cameron Newton. Go ahead, Sarah. You guys
Speaking
are
of
bad
Cam
friends.
Newton, well, he's a former MVP and three-time Pro Bowler. Cam is coming off a disappointing 7-9 season and off-season shoulder surgery. He's back on the field with a new throwing motion and taking baby steps to get back to the player he was. Head coach Rivera says his timing with his wide receivers is a work in progress. So, Coach, are you expecting a bounce-back year for Cam?
Yeah, and look, I was going to talk about this in the context of Nick's hair because it's kind of the same thing. Nick had the one style for all those years, and now he's going to something different. And each day we come out, and it's a little bit, we don't know what to expect. I'm sure you don't know what to expect. And it's very similar with Cam Newton. Cam's trying to change a throwing motion that he's had for years and years, and there's muscle memory involved. So unlike hair, he's got to train it every day as opposed to just find your style. And that, to me, is hard because when you start getting into the pressure situations and you start having to perform at a high level.
You just want to shave it all off.
Yeah, at some point,
go back to what you know, what
when
you feel comfortable
when you
with.
hear enough, and you're under enough stress, you're gonna eventually want to shave it all off.
So for Cam to not further this analogy, but how do you prevent that? Because Cam has been, I know he's, go ahead, see, I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
I know he's obviously suffered the injury, and I know he's much maligned, but he also won an MVP and a Heisman Trophy and a national championship and played in a Super Bowl with his old throwing motion. That's not to say you shouldn't change it, but how do you, as a coach, convince the athlete, no, this way it's going to be worth it. It's going to, like a golfer reworking his swing, once we get to the other side of it, it's going to be worth all the effort.
Well, when you look at Cam's season last year, his completion percentage was almost 10 points higher than his career completion percentage. His sacks was at one of the all-time lows. His numbers overall were very, very good, probably second best to the year that they went to the Super Bowl. And they started 6-2. So there's a lot of evidence that says if he does what Norv Turner is asking him to do, he'll be able to perform at a high level. The offense will be able to perform at a high level. And in terms of changing his throwing motion, now it's about longevity. He's also gone vegan. He's doing different things now. Similar to what we see from the Tom Brady's and the older quarterbacks, he's starting to look at it from a longer-term perspective. And this is part of Cam wanting to play deep into the future. He's going to have to adjust if he wants that to be a possibility.
Coach makes some very good points. The hair analogy is one. The golf swing is also another very good one. What golfers do is their instructor lets them know, because right now I had a bad shoulder injury. I hadn't played much golf for the last 2 years. So now I'm in the process the last month of re-putting together my golf swing. So I'm about being on the right course. So it's not about where did the shot go, did I do the right things? So when he starts missing wide receivers, the coaches aren't going to be critical, oh, I missed this guy, because every receiver has a different rhythm. It's like a song. So you have to try to catch every rhythm of it. But when you have a guy like Mangini comes into the studio, I don't worry that I know it's going to be better later, but I have to stick with the process.
You talk about the big picture and the ways in which he's changed his diet or looking at longevity. Coming off this shoulder surgery as well, does he need to take a different approach in taking contact or some of the ways on the field that could help him extend his career or be more careful with that shoulder?
Well, to some degree, he has done that. And you look at his sack numbers, percentage-wise, it was, I believe, the lowest sack percentage that he's had in his career.
Less than 6%.
So he's taking those steps. And part of this process is learning how to get to the answers without your feet. And it's a really difficult thing to do for guys who've been so talented, who've been able to answer that question for so long. But then as Mother Nature creeps in, as those hits start creeping in, you've got to have the second pitch. You absolutely have to if you want to hang around. And Cus D'Amato, the famous boxing trainer, used to train the jab, and he said, look, you've got to do it so much that they can't mess it up even if you want to. And that's part of what Cam has to do with muscle memory. He's got to do this so much that he can't mess it up even if he wants to, because he's got to retrain all those years of throwing in one style.
And the coaching staff have to be patient as you go through these mini camps and OTAs and everything, and they have a number of different wide receivers. You got to be patient with Cam, that he has the type of confidence that when you leave training camp, that he understands it's more important for me to stay on this regiment that I'm on. And you mentioned it, Coach. He's been doing these things over the last couple years. He got hurt last year, not because of bad fundamentals, but because of a hit. But Cam was ready to be that next quarterback. He doesn't want to be like Michael Vick. Not to talk bad about Michael Vick, but he wants to be known as a passing quarterback. He doesn't want to be known as a Randall Cunningham who didn't get this until later in his career. So he's on the right track, Nick.
So 2 quick points. One is what your guys are both describing is something I try to ascribe to in my daily life and I struggle with, which is process over results. Do I have the right process? Don't be results oriented. Don't ask yourself, well, did it work out? Ask yourself, did I make the right decisions en route to trying to achieve my outcome? And trust your results. Trust that you do that enough, the results will be there. But the other point, when you say not to disparage Michael Vick, but that's not the player he's trying to be, you and I, a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, got into I don't want to say an argument, but a back and forth on Cam, where I said, I kind of just said flippantly, listen, he's not a Hall of Famer, but that doesn't, and you cut me off. You said, you don't think Cam Newton thinks he's going to be a Hall of Famer? You don't think Cam Newton's expectations of himself are, I am going to be, I was the #1 pick, I won a Heisman Trophy, I won an MVP, that I'm going to be one of the all-time greats? And it kind of made me rethink how I've been thinking about Cam and what his trajectory should be. And if you're right about where his mindset is, and this is a guy you've known since he was 17, then this is a necessary process. This is the necessary next step in becoming not just one of the greatest athletes to ever play the position, who when he's on is as good as anyone in football, but a guy who when he's off is still good. Because that's what's killed Cam. It's that his bad games are awful games because of the lack of consistency. That's what I would imagine he's trying to cut out, in addition to saving the shoulder a bit with the different throwing motion.
But you make a great point talking about process and how difficult that is, and the level of maturity and self-awareness it takes to stick with something like process over results. And one thing that Cam has struggled with is those emotional ups and downs. And when he goes through a game or two where the new motion isn't giving him what he wants right away, is he going to be able to stay with it? And Chris's point is great too. The coaches have to be consistent with him. They can't say, okay, Cam, be Cam. You know, it's got to be a consistent message and effort by everybody involved.
Coach, thanks so much. We'll see you a little bit later in the show. But coming up, it is Ice Cube who joins us next to talk some Lakers.
Come
on in. We got A-list guests.
Good seeing you, man.
Left and right.
Lakers, y'all back on the map.
Coach,
After 6 years of stinking up the joint, bro. I need an explanation for this.
No, you don't need no explanation. You know what time it is.